in with the most amazing woman in the world to literally open the bedroom door, we both throw our clothes off, get on in bed and have sex. Not at all. It's always been foreplay. It's always been about foreplay.
Welcome to Girl Talk with Jenny Raven. Episode 10, Sofia Anderson. So welcome to this podcast with me, Jenny Raven. I'm thrilled to be reaching out literally across the planet to have an in-depth conversation with Sofia Anderson, who we've been corresponding via emails. She took my survey a while back and I ended up with a blog post, and it seems like we're sisters from another mother. And so we decided to jump on this podcast to explore our remarkably similar life experiences and journey and conclusions, what it all means, what it might mean, where we may be headed. And I'm really thrilled. Sophia, how are you doing?
Hi, Jenny. I'm doing extremely well today, and thank you, firstly, for inviting me on to do this podcast. I'm really excited about this. I'm sure we'll talk about this sort of more, but as a cross-dresser down in Australia, as much the population is smaller, I feel the community is smaller, and I don't know or don't feel I'm into that community much. So to come across you, the podcast, seeing your website, doing the survey, and for you to reach out, put a real smile on my face. So I'm excited, and you might just have to sort of contain my enthusiasm and particularly my rate of speech, but I'll be conscious about that. Can't wait.
I can't wait either. It's going to be hilarious. Now, you've heard the podcast previously, so you know I always begin with a number of quickfire questions to get us into the mood. I'm going a little bit more fun and playful on this one, so let's dive in. So, Sophia, first of all, baby pink or red?
Oh, baby pink.
I agree. So, baby pink or black?
Black.
Also agree. PVC or rubber?
PVC.
Satin or lace?
Satin lace lingerie, satin clothes on top.
Lace top hold-ups or suspenders?
Suspenders. I will not go out in hold-ups, even though they're lovely. I'm sorry, it's just a It's a non-negotiable for Sophia. Suspender stockings every day of the week.
Dressed or undressed for fun?
Dressed, to begin with.
Ideal height of heels for playtime?
Playtime, if I'm in the bedroom, I haven't got to walk, your 120 mil Christian Louboutins. If I've got a little bit of walking, 100 mil.
Okay, we have our first distinction because I would be in inches.
Oh, yes, sorry. Okay. 4 or 5. 5 inches tops, 4 inches is easy.
On camera or behind the camera?
On camera.
Watch or be watched?
Be watched.
And if you were going to go for a uniform, a schoolgirl or a secretary?
Oh, secretary.
Solo, twosome, threesome or moresome?
Dream, fantasy, bucket list is a big moresome.
So we're going to get into, obviously, all your shared experiences with my shared experiences, because as I said at the beginning, we have so much that's in common in our journey. But first of all, for you now personally, as you are today, what is your favourite outfit? How do you most love to be in the world?
My favourite outfit as Sophia, first of all, has to have lingerie, and I'm talking about matching sensual but stylish, bra or knickers, suspender belt, stockings. Most of the time I will insist on it being seam stockings, and a pair of stiletto heels, closed toe, not platform. On top of the dress, it's either a sort of a corporate suit or dress look or a sort of cocktail dress evening look. So a pencil skirt, a satin silk blouse and a jacket, really tailored into your waist and out. So it's classic 1950s, 60s, that sort of style. So
many cross-dressers, I think, enjoy a much more girly look, a younger look, and you're clearly going for a classic, woman of allure, which is, fabulous and alluring. Why do you think you're attracted to that way of being in the world as opposed to what seems to be a more common. Almost every cross-dresser I speak to has a secret schoolgirl fantasy. So why do you think you have a little distinction there?
I've always been attracted to an older woman. That sense of life experience, it's looking at the way would people dress, and the older women will be more of a style. They've found the way to dress that is timeless in age, from 30, 40, 50 upwards. So I think it's those things. Even dressing as a man, your Ralph Lauren, your preppy, but as an American preppy, stylish sort of look, I think I would feel comfortable with myself. But I think interesting, and look back at it now, that sense of sort of life experience that a woman portrays being that bit older, I think is a fashion style, but the more I think about it, it's also a sort of reality of sexuality preference as well.
Right. And when you are Sophia and you're full Sophia, whose company do you enjoy being with the most in terms of the holistic experience of even possibly the ritual of getting dressed together and then enjoying each other's company, which will then lead to more intimate fun?
It's absolutely women, other women, and to your comment of even dressing.
Well, let's dive into, when you say women, obviously that encompasses a massive spectrum of personalities. Let's describe also the personality of your perfect evening.
To date, as Sophia, I'd been out in public with other women, and they are sort of different personalities and backgrounds. When I first started going out publicly as Sophia, the women I first went with out were escorts, so sort of professional people in the edge of the adult industry or on the edge of the adult industry. So over the last 3 years, some close female friends of mine know about Sophia, and I go out, with them as well. So in terms of, the great evening, it would be girls together, 3 or 4 girls together, having some champagne or a drink and chat and conversation beforehand, all having our makeup and hair done together, all dressing our outfits together, all changing 2 outfits because we can't decide, which one we're going to wear at first, and doing it. And it would be going out at least 2, if not really, I think 4 women together. I would want them to have a similar outlook in life to me. So, stylish but cheeky, flirty, but there's ranges of that. So, I was chatting to some friends with me recently, a willingness to live their life, but not be, crazy extreme. And I obviously want them to embrace that I am Sophia and a cross-dresser, and they feel completely comfortable about it. Interesting enough, on that, just the types of personalities, say, whilst I've done it in Australia, I haven't been out with any other cross-dresser or trans person across the spectrum. I've come across, a makeup service in the UK called The Boudoir London, run by Jodie Lynn, and she did a makeover for me Christmas last year. And I said, I'd love to go out for lunch with you and a couple of you other trans girls, or your girls in Boudoir London. So I did that, and that's the first time I went out with 2 other. These ladies are both trans and actually want to transition fully to become women. And that was exciting, and I enjoyed that. But I'd say my perfect would be a mixture then of Sophia as a cross-dresser, at least one, and then a mixture of sort of cis women present as women, and actually a sort of trans cross-dresser, someone anywhere on that spectrum as well. So it really is it's a combination of all sort of emotions and energies, but the common theme is female energy, talking as if how women do, because you're really extolling just that feminine charm, the sort of women, say energy, spirituality, and emotions.
One of the things that's really gripped me at the moment in terms of a concept which kind of hit me maybe a week ago, we'll talk about our histories in a moment, but my more recent history is I went into therapy to really understand who I am and why I am the way I am, and that also triggered me writing a biography of Jenny, or rather should I say Jenny writing a biography of Jenny, because the two personalities have very, very different voices. And I've really kind of dug into why I am the way I am, but also why I am the way I am now, as opposed to, like you, Jenny had a hiatus in certain years and perhaps even decades. And one of the things that I've really become present to, and this was one of the questions that we had in our Quickfire Questions, is the distinction between what I would characterize, and there's a spectrum here, what I would characterize as masculine sexual energy and feminine erotic energy, where the masculine wants to have sex and the pinnacle of that experience is an orgasm, whereas the feminine wants to be seduced, feel the erotic energy, relax into it, almost like a warm bath, to be present in that energy for a very long period of time. Like when I get my full Jenny on, or rather when Jenny takes over, she will demand that I spend a long period of time as Jenny in a heightened state of excitement, leading to arousal, playfulness, outrageously naughty at times, will take risks that, her masculine alter ego would never dream of taking, but she's all for it. And I just wanted your take on that, because, again, we seem to be quite similar.
Just, reflecting on that literally now is the heart of what makes my heart sing when I'm with Sophia. It is actually being, I suppose, hit an environment in a dress, you've given yourself permission to really sink into that feminine energy. So even when it comes to my sexuality and enjoyment as a man, back to head or bad on the giver, it's always been foreplay. It's always been about foreplay. I have no desire, even with the most amazing woman in the world, to literally open the bedroom door, we both throw our clothes off, get on in bed and have sex. Not at all. It's all about the foreplay for me. And what I have found fascinating thinking about this, because that's what I even like to do as when I present as a man, is that's what men tell me is what they enjoy. So it's all about giving and pleasing the woman. And I find that a turn on in itself. So to me, I'm aroused seeing someone else being aroused by what I am doing for them. Dressed as Sophia, I think that comes through certainly in the sexuality of Sophia, in the sense of she wants to be seduced, she wants to be part of a playful time rather than the pure physicality of it. So it is, whether it's sensory deprivation of blindfolding, it's the tease, it's the torment, it's the sadness, cheekiness of that. It's Sophia and I as a man are very tactile. It's the connection. It's the build up of as much the mind eroticism as it is the physical, eroticism. So I think, as Sophia, she's definitely the case of just being in her element when she's in feminine energy, both sort of outside of a intimate situation and inside a intimate situation as well. And she wants to definitely be seduced, be part of that. But the roles are not reversed. When I am Sophia, I still want to play the role, not exclusively, but my preference, certainly I enjoy being a giver. I want to please my partner I'm with in the bedroom, in the intimate situation, as much because I think it's almost just a strong value for me around this should be mutual pleasure. And I enjoy it more when I see my partner enjoying it more, and I'd like to think vice versa. Indeed, obviously I do believe in exploring with your partner things you want to try, enjoy, but whether it's the way I like a woman to dress or sexual acts or anything like that, if she's doing it just because I want her to do it, I believe that's never going to work on a long-term basis. There has to be an element of her wanting to do something that I would wish her to do, that she still gets some enjoyment out of that herself.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I just want to kind of acknowledge right now, actually, and throw an offer out to you is, I suppose in some ways, the inevitability of we're having a podcast in our masculine energies, talking about our feminine energies. And, I did a podcast with Emily Letts recently. She's a kink therapeutic practitioner. And she challenged me to come on her podcast, but to come on as Jenny. And it was terrifying, but also, as you will fully expect, the moment I crossed that threshold, it was extraordinary. So I think we should continue this conversation as is, but we should put a date in our diary to for Sophia and Jenny to fully meet in full personality.
Well, funny you should say that. I thought it'd go to me it would be enjoyable to do so, but the mind sort of question I had when in the proverbial in the shower this morning was, would my answers be different depending if I was fully as Sophia? And I think they'd be a bit different, but I believe my sort of journey as Sophia is evolving, so I believe the difference between the two would be less and less almost month by month now.
Right. I think what Emily isolated in me was that maybe, the intellectual answer to questions would remain similar, perhaps even the same, but what did change was the tonality in my voice, the way I spoke, the way I behaved, the way I interacted, and I became significantly more playful and fun and naughty and daring and all of the things that we know this version of ourselves. Because you're completely right. I mean, ultimately, like yourself, my journey is one of integration. How can I integrate Jenny into me fully? And is it even the other way around? And in the shower the other day, I had the epiphany of like, am I a cross-dresser and Jenny's the one that's not? And that's a really interesting question. So am I cross-dressing as a man?
I heard you say that, Jenny, and I really just went, whoa, hadn't even thought that thing, but also thought we're fascinated to hear how that made you feel, like scared out of your living daylights, or playful, intrigued, curious, going, maybe is that just another step of your journey? You're happy to be there, or is it more, oh my god, I'm more towards the spectrum of there's a cliff coming and I'm happy to look down at the moment, but whether I'm quite ready to jump off.
Right. I mean, it's a really fascinating question, and it's one that has, as you will know personally, because we'll get into this in a minute, it has personal implications. I have a partner, I have a son, and I have a job or a work, I work for myself. So all of those things are parts of the chessboard, the pieces that need to, rotate around that big decision. What I can tell you, and I'd love your perspective on the experience. There's almost like a handover, or a handshake moment, where the masculine side of me goes, "Okay, Jenny, over to you," and then in a matter of seconds, she takes over. And if I'm with somebody, that person usually starts to giggle at that point, because they just see this fairly dramatic shift in me, and they know that Jenny's going to be audacious. And as soon as I'm in that space, she's in complete control. And I adore giving over fully to her in those moments. Part of my particular journey at the moment, the business that I'm in, is in a kind of like arts. It is a creative community and to some degree events based as well. And with every conversation I have with people, I'm edging towards, should I start running an event, or should I audaciously step into this space as Jenny and announce to the world, look, here I am. Because my overriding feeling is that for about 30 seconds, people will go, oh, blimey, wow, really? Goodness me. And then they'll go, oh, pass the sugar, please. I just need some more sugar in my coffee. And that will be the end of it. There'll be shock and awe and surprise for 30 seconds. Of course, my ego wants people to go, oh my, and talk for hours and hours, but they won't. And there'll be some people who will, have a very, very dramatic reaction and say, I'm sorry, I need to cut you out of my life. And there'll be some people who will lean in and say, we always knew, or fabulous. I've had a massive bump in my social media recently because I did one post that was an idea that came from a cross-dresser friend, and that went absolutely, huge. It's just had 1 million views now, just past 1 million views in the last few days. But what's really not surprising, of course it's not surprising, but in the comments, I would say 1 in 50 is negative. It may be 1 in 30. And I don't have full evidence for this, but they always seem to occur overnight, which tells me that they're probably coming from America. They're usually one word or an emoji that is a version of sick, vomit, mental health or all of that. And it doesn't bother me. And then you click on those links and you discover that person's got 3 followers and a private account. So, they don't even have the courage of the words that they're prepared to put out into the world. So there is still this resistance from a small, I don't know whether it's a small minority, I don't know whether there's a larger majority that is uncomfortable or not. But I keep coming back to this really remarkable thought, which is they are just clothes. And it's just a way of being in the world. And why on earth does that threaten anybody? Like, why on earth would anybody have a negative reaction? Why wouldn't you just go, okay, and scroll on? And I can only come to the conclusion that it threatens some people's idea of masculinity, possibly because they, like you and I, have a feminine side that they're tortuously denying and hiding and pretending doesn't exist, but secretly they're envious.
Yes. I was going to ask you, Jenny, you're in the creative sort of area. Was your initial sort of thought and or impression now, given the creative, one might go, they'll be more tolerant, they'll be used to different emotional spectrums and so on. It'll be easier than say, I'm from the legal professional services background where you think they might be a bit more rigid. Is that your experience, or is it more, I wonder whether this situation is now, it's not because you're in a creative and I'm not, or vice versa. It's take 10 people together, you just get a range of views, full stop. Did you think or see that in being creative world? Do you feel it would be easier for you to fully come out because it's creative, or is it not make a difference?
I really do think it would be easier. In fact, I had an experience just 3 or 4 weeks ago. Like the universe is conspiring to present me with opportunities to continue my journey. And I met an extremely successful person in my industry who has, won accolades and is working at the highest level. And I went to an event and I met them, but they were presenting completely as a woman. And for the first 45 seconds, I didn't make the connection. And it was only when somebody referred to them by name, I went, oh. And it was, I wouldn't say a shock, it was a surprise. And then I had a little chuckle inside. And then, of course, made a beeline and we got to talk. And we had a good old chat. I didn't share any of my details at that point because because I knew that would lead to, we need to go have a coffee right now. And that wasn't I couldn't do that in that moment. And I still haven't, reconnected with them. Not that I don't want to, but it was a real moment of recognition. And I think just to actually answer your point is, I think it's more a question of two other aspects, which is intelligence, which is a horrible way to describe it. But I do think the more people can't critically think for themselves, the more likely they're to adopt a tribal mentality, which then links into the tribal beliefs. And I think religion bizarrely plays a big part in this, because I don't really see much in actual scripture, religion, historical texts that has anything to say about this whatsoever. I mean, it's literally not there. So it's made up. It's a modern phenomenon, and it's just another way of seeing people as other, as different, and therefore not part of the tribe. And the less sophisticated and capable of difficult thought, difficult conversation, and I still maintain, part of it is, if you sit down with anybody for 3 hours, you'll probably, unless they're very, very hardcore, you'll probably make friends. You'll build bridges. It's only when we become groups and group identity, then everything devolves into a meme or a sentence or a word, and that word or that sentence is incompatible with my group's sentence or word, so therefore we are now at war. And I'm like, wow, that escalated quickly. Dude, seriously, it really, do my high heels really offend you that much? Is it really that offensive? So yes, I have another friend who's also very, very successful, and she kind of said to me, you should come out. You'll probably be hired more. And I kind of in my bones, I know that's true, because I'll just become, more flamboyantly, I'll be at least visible in people's eye lines. I'll be an interesting story, and everybody likes to be associated with an interesting story. So, but it just really comes back to, I suppose, really mostly my son at the moment. Just 5-6 weeks ago, I had a conversation with my partner about Jenny Raven, who she didn't know existed as a novelist, as a storyteller. She knew about my high heel proclivity, and it had diminished in our relationship to non-existence, but it was there, it was present. She knew about it, she'd previously played with it, she has no problem with it whatsoever. But 6-7 weeks ago, it came back up as I'm on this journey now, I need to let you know, because I don't know where the journey will take me. But the one part of it was, how does this impact my little boy? Because I don't want him to either get bullied because of it, or get confused. I don't think he will be confused. I'm more worried about the bullying. So it's a complex answer, as you know, because you've been through your own trials and tribulations in order to set Sophia free, and it's not necessarily people's acceptance or not. It's like my partner, like her parents would not. There's no universe where they would understand it. And there's a big part of me that would love to go for Sunday lunch at Jenny, just to put 2 fingers up.
Well, I think, Jenny, you're being authentic, in my perception here, because you're managing how you got around here. So the generational difference, right? You just can't ignore that. I agree with you entirely. It's one thing I might be looking at thinking, trying to tell my daughter or even my brother or sister or whatever, but parents, nah, it's just not gonna, it's just not, it's almost, I feel that you could be said to be a little bit too selfish. You want to get it out for you, not for them. And you're reciting that meeting that person, very successful, and then presented as the woman. It made me chuckle and link back the comment you said around your tone, your voice, your playfulness, your, where your mind's going to go changes when you're Jenny. Close, women friends of mine who know me and my male persona and Sophia, say exactly the same things. You say you change. Exactly your voice. You said your hand mannerisms you change, just the way you talk in conversations, etc. But the other thing they said to me was, we totally understand you're nervous when you're first getting out in public, or even second, third, fourth, sixth time out in public in the evening, whatever. And they said to me, your dress as a woman, even people you know, they're not going to look at you and think it's the male one straight away. It's like, it's just, you are dressed over. People are not going around walking in the street and looking at someone saying, is that them women presenting as a man, or vice versa? So it's, your experience was similar in that the reality is someone is not going to suddenly look at you and say, oh, that's him over there that I've known from the thing. Well, if that were to happen, obviously someone does connect it through facts or this, the event scenario you're in. You can put two and two together, Sandra, and that's perhaps more of a risk or a situation you got to be comfortable with. But I think someone to put that two and two together, as I would say, is often of a mindset who would be tolerant, because they've got to think of that as a possible outcome. I mean, if back your tribal group point, if you're, just a hate of a cross-dresser, you're not even going to sort of think that people can do that normally. That wouldn't enter your consciousness as someone you meet can be the opposite.
Yeah. I think for me personally, I'm very visible in my industry and in my business. I'm like the face of it. And so there would be no way to escape it. And I wouldn't want to escape it. If I'm going to step over that line, I'm going to step over the line. And, one person who really inspires me over here in the UK is Eddie Izzard, who's also known as Susie Izzard now. Because she, first of all, isn't, pathologically obsessive with getting call him or her. That's okay. And I feel very much the same, like it doesn't really matter for me personally. And sometimes presents male, sometimes presents female, sometimes presents in between, which I think is the most interesting part, because I've really come to the conclusion that I am me. Like, I'm not really her or him. I'm me in between, whatever that means. And that's okay. And that's completely fine. And so his great quote, which I use at the beginning of the book, they're not women's clothes, they're my clothes. And that's exactly how I feel. They just happen to be of a feminine cut from a store that traditionally would be associated with women's clothes, and they give a feminine appearance. But I'm still me inside all of that. And I'm not attempting to change me. I'm just attempting to be me in the most complete and authentic way possible. Unfortunately, we live in a world where, signals, and I understand it, people want to find partners, they want to mate, they want to have families, and it's a little bit of a surprise if you discover your partner is not what you anticipated. I understand that. So, I think being honest up front is quite important. And about intention, it's almost like that whole thing about permission, and I just think the more honest we are, the easier life is going to be.
Have you thought that for a long time, or is that involved in your journey as Jenny?
So I think we should probably talk about our shared histories in a moment, because they are so reflectively similar. But I had a very, very as a child. At the age of 5, I very, very strongly wanted to be a girl. I don't quite understand why. There was no particular reason for that. I just identified with them I've worked exclusively with women throughout my entire life, often lesbians, and have enjoyed that, that relationship. I find it difficult to work with men a lot of the time because of there's just a way of being that gets in the way of me doing my job. Obviously I can work with men, but I just find it easier, certainly in my inner circle, to work with with women to do so. But during my, I suppose, 20s and 30s, Jenny didn't really exist, certainly didn't exist as Jenny. And it's only later in life that Jenny started kind of scratching at the wardrobe door with her long red nails saying, "Let me out." And it was really in the pandemic when it got to fever pitch, because I couldn't get out, and there was no place to go and be Jenny once a year, 3 times a year, 10 times, whatever it was, whatever the frequency was. And so I started writing, and that's when Jenny needed a name, because obviously it needed a name on the book. And so I came up with that name more as a marketing thing than anything else. And that's when I began the journey of I should write a biography, which then tumbled me into therapy and deep diving into the process of, I suppose, bringing the wholeness of me together, which has been easier than I anticipated. I thought there'd be more resistance from the people closest in my life. But I think they are, Jenny is a facet of my playful sexuality. I think, very simply put, as a young person, when I became sexually capable of, making babies. I was aware that most of the boys they characterize it, I'd like to have a quick shag with her. And I'd be like, I'd like to do my nails with her for like 3 hours and then lie in bed and, cuddle and stroke each other and, and could we do that for 3 days? And I was really aware that I think it's like a part of me, whatever part that is, certainly my sexuality, like how I want to experience sexual intimacy is at the feminine end of the spectrum. There's another part of me that's very happy picking up a power drill, and I can climb up a ladder, do all of the masculine stuff, and Jenny doesn't need to show up for that. So, and doesn't show up for that. There's no universe where Jenny would be like, "Let me put on my heels as I go up this ladder." Right? That would be completely inappropriate in that moment. So, again, in the training that I do, I often talk about how we have different personalities and different energies that show up. And, leadership is one personality, courage is another, and, playfulness is another, and sexual playfulness is where Jenny just, completely takes over. And it starts to explain a lot of the challenges I've had in my, relationships with women, because I think, and again, Emily Letts touched on this, is that women are as much a victim of, men are supposed to be like this and women are supposed to be like that. And so we both mask up. And some women want to be more masculine. I mean, some women really want to be more masculine and dominate. And some men want to be more feminine. And that's okay. And we just need to communicate that, I would say, as early as we can in the relationship, so we don't go down a long way. I was lucky in my current relationship, which is over 20 years now, in so much as 4 weeks in, I said, "Listen, there's a box over there in the corner of the room. We need to open it up. You're going to be surprised." And it took about 10 seconds for her to adjust. And then she smiled and said, "Let's do it." And then Jenny completely took over. But I know a lot of other people have had less fortunate experiences. And I know you had challenges in your life relationships.
Well, it's just listening to all this now, sort of particularly around the different personas, and then the fear, how much does one want to sort of come out publicly? I asked the question of whether the me, it's not either or, where that had come from in a journey, because for me, Sophia, I began cross-dressing as a teenager, but first becoming sexually active, make kids. And I say, really, when I was in adult relationships, it was latent until towards the end of my marriage, which wasn't working, and then has grown and grown each year over the last sort of 8 years now. My journey's been, it's only in the last 6 months. I just woke up one day and hadn't just sort of observed. I'd changed my language from there's man in me and there's Sophia to there's me. It's exactly like you're saying. I'm now very much in I am me. We often in the world talk now things in spectrum, but I thought, no, it's wrong to say it's two things. That like as if they are separated and you sort of transmute from one to the other. No, it's the two. But back then to, willingness for where is Sophia's journey in terms of how public I want to be. One thing that always playing my mind is the whole point, or is a real heart of Sophia, a non-public, private way to be naughty, to do things, to say things that the male construct feels either they certainly shouldn't do in societal norms, don't even know if they want to. But I know I'm a big fan of the ventriloquist Nina Conti and her monkey puppet. A part of their play is very much monkey is how Nina can express her true views and thoughts, which are a lot of swearing, a lot of really hilarious but very rude comments about people. And I've recently thought that, is the end journey for me and Sophia not to become totally public, because I'll lose that sense of she's a little in private, she's a little bit in the dark, I can do things, she's my ability to rebel a little bit against the societal upbringing and norms that a masculine man, successful in their career, successful in their marriage should have. Like, actually, I would not be happy if Sophia is totally out, because I lose that dark side of me.
That's a really fascinating observation. That's never occurred to me, but it makes total sense. In so much as, again, as growing up, I didn't identify with the masculine notion of sexuality of being, let's have a quick shag. And I didn't identify with the women who also wanted that. They occurred to me as, if this were America, they would be the jocks and the cheerleaders. But here in the UK, they were the rugby players and the netball players. And not exclusively, obviously. And then in the middle, there would be this group of people who play piano or do drama, and those people were my tribe. But I think you're absolutely right. It's like I do have this this powerful sexual energy and side to me that was unable to be expressed inside of the construct the 1980s, even 1990s UK kind of said that's quote-unquote normal. And so I developed this other version of me that would come out in those situations that wanted something different. But I guess a masculine man couldn't lie in bed and say, go on, stroke me. Like, can I stroke you for half an hour? I suppose they could, maybe they'd be called Fabio and from Italy and gorgeous, going into real ridiculous stereotypes from movies and drama. But that's, again, we're on the spectrum of, who we are, and it's all good.
I was just going to say, like, everyone's got their own story and journey, and everyone is on the spectrum. So we heard already, we know from chatting ourselves, a lot of similarities, and everyone is slightly different as well. So for me, within, say, the trans spectrum, from cross-dressing one end to people who fully have transitioned or wish to, I think I'm a cross-dresser. Certainly growing up in my teenage years, and even in recent years when Sophia has really emerged again, I've never said to myself, I've never felt, I'm in the wrong body. My own experience has been much of, I want to be in a feminine energy space, and I want to be in that, whether it's by dressing and behaving, the woman. As a young teenage boy and growing up then main sexually, I didn't reject or not see myself as masculine in a sexual context. But I was the opposite end of the spectrum from let's have a quick shag. So it was sort of male, but it's a caring male in the bedroom, and so it comes through that, and also Sophia, as well. So I much for mental health and in relationship issues, went into therapy, and in fact, still do it regularly. We've explored a little bit, for example, where my cross-dressing has come from. I'm balanced now. In a couple of years ago, I've got to find out what this is, not because it's making me upset or cross or angry or I'm going to not cope if I don't know, but read out of curiosity. And from my background in education often is science background, very logic. So historically I've always been, there's nothing unexplainable. It's just we haven't developed the science to explain it. I'll explain in a sense my philosophy outlook has changed to going, as a logical person, why can't there be something that's unexplainable? There's nothing illogical about that. And that's translated into I'm curious to know where some of this has come from, but I don't have to know it now. What I am thinking about is I can remember I had memories, obviously, in my early teenage years. I can't remember, it's 12, 13, 14, it's that, when I first started dressing up. I don't remember having a thought as to why. I do know that similarly, when I first, I was growing up in my late teens, early 80s in the UK, it was girly magazines as your sex education, nothing from your parents. And I swear that I reckon my dad left a few copies of Mayfair in his bedside cabinet precisely so I could see it and do it. But right from the word go, you'd see girls. I was interested in girl in the centerfolds. Mayfair would have 3 or 4 girls in a magazine of 2 or 3 pages of each girl. If the woman was totally nude all the way through those 4 pages, it's like, okay, yeah, it's nice. The woman was wearing lingerie and it was then gradually undressing bit by bit. That's the only woman I wanted to look at in that magazine. So when it came then to wanting to dress up in the woman, it was to be able to dress up in lingerie and have that, I suppose, common experience. And that's how it sort of started. But there wasn't a pivotal moment as such, other than I can only remember going through puberty and being sexually interested, getting erections, having your first orgasm from masturbation, and pretty much can't remember there not being a time around that I then started dressing up a little bit as women.
I think part of that, looking at my history as well, was that the whole, the entire, everything that cascaded under the words sex and sexuality was taboo, all of it. So on the one side, whether you wanted a quick shag behind the bike sheds or whether you wanted to dress up in stockings and heels, all of it was taboo. So, you couldn't question any of it, or you could question all of it, but it was all in the shadows. So I agree. There's no point when I thought there's something wrong or weird with me. It's just maybe everybody's doing this. I didn't think that, but it wouldn't have surprised me if more people were doing it. And I never really felt bad, wrong, or questioned myself. And I totally agree. Like, one of the things I keep, the books are, I suppose, an expression of this. And it's why I keep doing audio books, because they're getting closer to porn. Because I'm continually frustrated by porn, because let's, take a 15-minute clip that it tends to be what it is. There's a tease, the tease unpacks a bit, and then it very quickly devolves into every hole to goal. And as soon as it goes there, I'm out. Like, I'll only ever watch the first 3 or 4 minutes of a clip, and as soon as it crosses that line into, just being completely, frank, people fucking, then I'm okay. I'm out. I want the looking into each other's eyes, the tease, the smile, the hyper dressed up hyper femininity, where heels are the highest they can possibly be, legs are the longest they can be, makeup is ridiculously over the top. I'm not a fan of artificial, when it becomes so ridiculous that people have had surgery, and then it's like I don't need giant boobs so a lot of the things that men seem to be obsessed with go and buy for the newsagents, which on reflection now seems an absurd thing to ever done. Go and buy a copy of Men Only and just look at the first 10 photos, and after photo number 10 you're like, okay, it's a bit boring now. And I wanted to be that model. I wanted that life. There was a part of me, and still does, like if I could have a fairy godmother wave a wand, I'd be a lesbian porn star at the age of 19, probably running OnlyFans and fabulously wealthy. I'm sure that it's not that simple at all, but, that's a fantasy life I can never have, but, I can through my writing, I suppose.
And the writing is a very interesting comment for me. One part of it is simply we're from a generation before you have videos, you had YouTube, so writing and pictures was your main media, I suppose. And then, I would enjoy looking at the women in lingerie in the centerfolds in Minute Only or Mayfair. But I also would always read the stories. And the right story with the right writing was just as arousing as watching the picture. And at the risk of this being an old fart, trying to make things feel modern or good, I do generally believe young people are realizing, like, important. You say it's just thrown in 3 minutes, 5 minutes straight away. That writing now will be a medium they'll actually find enjoyable because it allows you to, they will realize actually the power of beautiful writing is that you actually build relationship with people. They're just words on a page. It's really fabulous to think of. And I've heard, I'm still sort of friends in the sense of keep in contact with a couple of escorts that I used to see regularly. And they've said young men in particular in their early 20s, they are so sort of hamstrung by having watched porn, that's it. They have no idea, almost even how to kiss a girl or go out. They have no idea and are scared, really, really scared of how they have relationships with people. So that, a big out of porn, but actually, I'd like to think it's the sort of modern world of coming back to relationships, coming back to it's not just a quick shag and a fuck on the bed in 5 minutes. It's all part of really people connecting with each other a bit more. So it is more, I remember I've seen one quote, the biggest sexual organ is the mind. I can relate to that 100%.
Yeah, I think probably a woman said that, and I would totally agree with you. Yeah, if you ask a bloke, it would be in his trousers, and I think again that just comes back to masculine sexuality and feminine eroticism, sensuality. They are just, for whatever reason, whether it's cultural, genetic, outside influences, what we were exposed to at a young age, we have leaned in that direction where other people have leaned in a more classically cultural, a man is a man, a woman is a woman, and this is how we should occur in the world. And we haven't leaned in that direction and had the life journeys to reflect that. And now I think we should probably try and bring this to a close, otherwise we'll be here for another 3 hours. And I'm absolutely, I've got a load of questions here that I wanted to get into, so we're going to save that for the next one when Sophia and Jenny actually meet, fully dressed. But one of the things, I think you're Gen X like I am, and I became, part of my journey over the last few years was I can see the end of the tunnel. And one of the things I spoke to with my therapist was I've got this bucket list of stuff that I, for whatever reason, was unable to do as a young person, and it's kind of haunting me, and I need to go do it. And I kind of, I've lived life enough to know that at least 75% of those things on the bucket list I will do and go, well, that was disappointing. But because I haven't had it, I want it. And I'm very, very blessed because my partner is kind of giving me the green light to just go do. Of course, now I'm looking at that bucket list and I'm going, do I really want that? And at least a quarter of them have gone now because I can have it. I don't really want it. But the other thing that I've, again on a kind of purely science level, that I've occurred to me is my testosterone is diminishing year on year. It's just a scientific fact. And it occurred to me that, maybe Jenny's able to wake up each morning with me and she's just got less testosterone to wade through in order to get to the whole me. And, maybe those two factors are perhaps part of the reasons as well as just social economics, like your children are older and, mortgages are paid off, or at least, partly paid off. You don't have financial insecurity. Lifelong relationships have either resolved or broken down. You have new, teenage style freedom again. And that's all part of the reason why Sophia has exploded back onto the scene, looking fabulous, all in black and sophisticated, and, strutting down the high street with her girlfriends.
When I look back in my 50s, when I'm done in my 50s, I just smile because I've never thought in my 20s or 30s of doing them, and on the 40s, even things like children grow up, you have got freedom, you're mobile, you do things. And Sophia is part of some of those bucket list things I've done, not all of them. You talked about seeing the end of the tunnel and so on. For me, it's opened my eyes and have said, I want to live the second half of my life better than my first half. Like, if whoever is up there is going to take me away tomorrow, I'm okay, because I've done some things now I never thought I would do. Sophia, in a way, I hadn't realised, is a sort of dream come true. I actually learned to play polo a few years ago, and that was a dream out of my 20s. But if they allow me, or she will allow me, I'm not going before I'm 100. I've got so much more to living. Partly Sophia, interesting about testosterone, I haven't thought about that. It makes a lot of sense. Just one thing on that, the masculinity, testosterone and femininity with Sophia. I am fascinated. I'm really happy that this is the outcome. When I'm dressed as Sophia, even I'm out in perhaps a nightclub dance with other women, they're flirting with men, we're all flirting, or actually sort of there's sexual energy in the air. I don't get a hard on, I don't get aroused, thank goodness, because otherwise it's pretty obvious. But I just find that both interesting, I find it really heartwarming that it says you are totally in feminine energy, Sophia. It's great feeling, that the sexual, you have your sexual energy, your physical body is behaving as a woman when you're biologically still a man underneath.
It's no surprise that you say that. We've run 2 surveys now for cross-dressers and had several thousand people take them, and I would say over 95% of people expressed that sentiment. The simplest form is start as early as you can. Embrace it now, not tomorrow, because you're just wasting a day. And maybe, that will force a tribal change around the people around you. But if people can't love you for the whole of you, then they don't love you for who you are anyway. So, yeah.
One sort of extra point on that is, I do at times think how much more fun playfulness could have had if Sophia came out earlier. She was latent from my childhood eras. But I'd say to people, don't let that sort of worry you. You're right. You've only got one life. The world is passing you by. Don't waste time. But it's don't feel, if you're getting these thoughts, you're looking at this, that you've got to act on them today. It doesn't matter it happens late. Don't try not to see that as a regret, but more as be thankful that you've had the opportunity to really express yourself or continue that journey to expressing yourself. Others, sadly, will never get that opportunity. And the people I have most sort of sympathy and empathy for are not the people who don't have the opportunity and never knew or wanted it. It's the people who didn't have the opportunity and wanted it. We're blessed. We have allowed ourselves and been encouraged by people who've supported us to have that opportunity.
Yeah, again, I really resonate with that, because from the survey, there's a huge amount of people who simply characterised as, I'm stuck in a marriage, my wife doesn't know or won't accept it or has found out and rejected it, and so it's not a possibility. And, my take on that, born out of my own experience, is, like you said, first of all, acknowledge and embrace. I would say get some therapy, because the ability to talk about it with a person who doesn't have skin in the game, who isn't going to go, I think you should do this because that's how it will impact me. But they're coming from a position of, I suppose, helping you make your own best choices. And then inch it forwards, once a day, once a week, once a month, once a year, whatever it is. But just take those small little steps, whether it's listening to this podcast, whether it's buying something on Amazon, or whether it's, telling a close girlfriend. My experience, I don't know about you, I have a terrific, I call it a gaydar. It's not technically a gaydar. It's more like a cross-dresser dar. But I can tell the women in my life, because I'll drop a phrase or I'll say something and they'll either smile or get a glint in their eyes, and I'm like, okay, we can talk about this. And then within 10 minutes, I'm already deep into it.
There are some women that I've told within 5 minutes of me first meeting them, because you pick up straight away their emotional energy and they're going to be a receptive to it. And I first thought when that was happening, it was more I'm just keen to blurt it out and tell people, but I've realized it's not. It's a real assessment of the people you're meeting, and if you feel comfortable with them, it literally can be 5 minutes after I've met someone, and there's been a few women like that.
Well, look, I can't wait to get my heels on for the next conversation. It's going to be fabulous, outrageous, audacious, perhaps even a little bit naughty. Thank you so much, Sophia, for your conversation from the other side of the planet today. And I can't wait for the next one.
Au revoir, Jenny.
Thank you. Thank you, girls, for listening to my podcast. I really appreciate you listening all the way through to the end. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, then please consider going over to my website at jennyraven.com and join my mailing list. Then you'll get information about all of my very, very naughty things that I send out on a regular basis. You'll also get access to a couple of my free stories. You can either read them, or better still, you can experience them as an audio journey where I will directly encourage you to dress up for me in your favourite costume and do very, very, very unspeakably naughty things. I can't wait for you to send me photos of that experience with me, so please do join up at jennyraven.com.